Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Genesee,
And hello,
and I
everyone.
am here with our awesome Carlos Bordeo, game director, a face you should know by now. Well, so let's begin as we often do. I'm sure you have lots of questions, so go ahead and ask them in the chat. We'll grab them into the live section and talk about them a little bit later. But first, Carlos, like, hey, how you doing? It's been a few weeks.
Good. I have a little few friends here. I want to share.
Oh, yay!
Maybe I can put one as a hat or something.
We're terrible teases. I know we do not have physical goods for you guys in Troublum Land, and you just keep asking. But obviously, like we'll consider that. It's
Yeah.
beloved.
These are handmade, so they're kind of hard to produce. It's a friend that does them over here, so we did a bunch of them. But I think she might be tired of making knitting things.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's jump into our contest. In Discord, a couple weeks ago, we asked our community to design their own Troublum dance, which I love how they interact with each other in game. And this is a chance for you guys to kind of make your own. And now we're going to discuss it. And your prize is the glory and fame we're about to bring you right now. So our first contest winner is the Meep Lord. Want to see the cool dance?
Yeah, it's amazing. I love this animation. It's really really nice. They're so happy.
Yeah, I'm so happy. It's so fun.
Yeah,
Okay, enjoy this, guys, for a second, and then we'll move to our
yeah.
second
I think
person.
maybe I can replicate it here. Like,
Oh, you
yeah.
can, yeah, make him dance.
It's not so easy.
Aw. Okay, so our second place winner is Sagasol,
Let me do that.
which is also a very cute dance.
1 second. Yeah, really cool. This one reminds me a little bit like the South Park animation, actually. Really nice.
Nice. Its own music. It's making its own music there.
Yeah, really really cute. I love it.
Cool. And our third place person is Soda Rishi. Now it's not quite a dance, but they entered it, and I think it's pretty neat how they created this like
Yeah,
3D waggle.
I'm actually curious what it is. Where's this coming from? Is this being done in Unity? Is it Unreal? Is
Yeah.
it? I'm curious about. Was it modeled entirely? I don't know. It
Yeah.
looks really cool. I love it.
If you're here, Soda, tell us more about this. And then our runner up is the standard dance that has been so popular in Discord by Pawn. Gosh, it's like a year old now, which we'll show you on Twitter. I think you all know it if you're in Discord. Yeah. So, okay, let's jump to your questions now. We have some of these from the last stream too that we never quite got to. But before we get into that too much, I have a couple like announcements here. For those of you who are looking for the physical retail version of the game, we've been kind of sharing that. There's a collector's version with a really neat book and a poster. But if you're looking for the retail version, it is going to be in Europe November 19th. So I believe that's next week. It is delayed in the US, however. We don't have a date to announce to you today to share that, except for just telling you that retail distribution challenges are happening and that the retail partners, we're waiting for them to confirm the official release date. So hopefully that will be before the holiday. We have high hopes for that. So if you're looking to order that for yourself or for a friend, just keep looking at your retailer site of where you plan to buy it, and they should update with the date when it happens. And the second thing we just have is I know there's a lot of questions that you have in Discord and everywhere about content updates and having new content. So as always, we're listening to your player feedback and requests, and we're looking for ways to continue to expand the game. We're considering adding elements like Endless Mode and New Game Plus, which are the most requested ones. We don't have anything official to announce at this time, so keep watching here, and we'll be sure to tell you the second that any of that is confirmed and like when it would happen and all of those details that I'm sure you want to know. So just FYI, we're considering all these things that you're asking, so we hear you.
Yeah, so we are looking at some stuff development wise. There has been a plan set internally in the studio of stuff that we want to work on. We are taking into account the things that have been most requested, but also we're taking into account things that we felt that the game could have as improvements based on the feedback we've received, not only by the community reviews and other stuff. So we're kind of coming around with some plans. We are working on some stuff, but obviously it from the point of sort of organizing our work, the development and confirming it, I can't say exactly what it is because there might be some stuff that we could end up saying, yeah, we're going to do this, and then we end up doing something else. So for now, patience, but we are working on new stuff for the game.
Yay. And so those of you who've had the game for a little while, you probably saw the hotfix patch go live on the PC version of the game. I know there's some people that have progress issues, etc. That stuff is coming to consoles, and the devs are working on it like ASAP as fast as they can. So patience, please, for those of you who are in progress issues. It's coming.
Yeah, actually, it's not in our. It's basically going to certification, the later stages. Unfortunately, this is a sort of a thing that it's more difficult on consoles because you have to submit your changes to go through official certification by the console manufacturers like Microsoft and Sony. So on PC, there is you can basically just deliver patches relatively quickly. But since this is we want to level out all the issues, have parity between all versions. So the next patch will address all those things for consoles, PC, all together.
Yes. Okay, so would you like to just jump into the game and I'll throw these questions at you that we have in Discord?
Sure.
Or I mean, I'm enjoying this little dance that's happening right now, but go ahead if you want.
Sure. Let me launch the game. And 1 second over here. That should change.
The one encompasses too much, crushing everything and making it the same.
So I'm basically going to continue close to where I ended the previous live stream. I know that since we did a lot of live streams before the game launched, and it was most of them we avoided spoiling stuff. So for the previous live stream, we decided to go a little bit deeper into chapter 4. So I'm going to continue from there because I'm reaching a part of the game where I think it's interesting, where I can make additional comments about a specific boss that's pretty cool in the game. And yeah, so jumping in.
They're telling me that you have to eat your mic again. I know that's your favorite thing.
Yeah.
Is your quiet mic.
Well, that means I'm going to have to get... There it is. It's the closest I can get.
Okay. Okay, so as this boots up, Sarah Mess is asking, what happened to the long trunk mutation? Can you tell us the story of that?
Yeah, the long trunk mutation was developed, but it had a very... The problem is that originally in the game, the trunk of the Troublum was supposed to have, like, physics, and so it's supposed to dangle in sort of collision against the terrain. And that would help us with, for instance, you can see on slopes that it sometimes clips into the terrain, and you can see it, I don't know, it would make it feel a little bit more natural. But when you have physics systems in your game, they also are way more prone to bugs, and they're not so easy to calibrate. So we were seeing a lot of problems and eventually decided to remove physics. What that meant is that would make the long trunk almost impossible, basically because that trunk would have had just too much clipping with the terrain and stuff. So we had to kind of let go that pretty neat design.
Okay. Sagosel asks, in the beginning of the game, the narrator mentions you should stay away from the water where the old things dwell. What are the old things? I think they're mentioning like the squidaboo. You don't really see it much in game. They're asking what the scary things in the water are.
There's actually creatures that were designed in the game that we never got to put in the game. And aquatic creatures was one of the areas where I wish we could have done more development. So it's obviously making references to creatures you don't really see in the game. The Squabadoo is definitely one of the scarier creatures that actually exist in the game, but it's pretty small. If we did go for a good content update, I think we would want to maybe think about doing some aquatic creatures, but the game does happen more in terrain, so that's something that's kind of we're not sure about yet. I'm actually going to go through a run here that a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but some people did mention was pretty hard in the game. And we're actually tuning it a little bit down for the upcoming patch. I just want to see if I'm going to die or not. Because some people did have problems with this run. This is in chapter 4, very deep in the game.
Well, you're running for your life there. I
Yeah.
am the Haijuku King asks, and this is debate point in Discord. Is the hind leg of the guards one single limb or two fused ones?
Of the guards, which ones? Which creature are you?
The great guards, the babies of the floating.
It's one leg. It
There you go.
it has 3 legs. I'm gonna make it. Yeah, this is one of the harder runs in the game. I might have lost a buddy there, or no. I got it. This is one of those runs that were basically the entire game was calibrated very, very patiently, like going over and over through the runs and seeing how well they were balanced. But it's more of a process of repeating them over and over. There are parameters that we could use, but eventually there were so many variables into each run which have to do with the things that could pop in the terrain, the enemies that might be there, what might be slowing down the cylinder, that you couldn't really put like a magical equation that would kind of guarantee this situation. So it was basically a lot of playtesting in the game, which made us eventually decide, well, at what speed we're going to put the cylinder in each section. And in this case, we maybe did it a little bit harder than we would have wanted to.
But you could turn off the aggression, like for the cylinder, right? If you couldn't make that, you could make it a little less aggressive, be slower.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. That would be a way to do it. But usually the second runs are easier once you die. I'm giving a spoil. I'm maybe spoiling a feature of the game. Basically, the cylinder, to ensure that players kind of get away with getting through sections, the cylinder does give you an easier time the next time it rolls if you get crushed by it.
Oh, okay, nice. So that's very kind of the cylinder.
Yes. I mean, these things exist in video games everywhere. There was actually a pretty popular thread that appeared on Twitter, I think it was last year, but where a game developer sort of started asking other game developers to share the cheats or implementations that exist within a game to try to make things easier for the player, but the player should not notice. And I think there were cases, for example, examples like in Doom Eternal, when you would receive your last, you were about to die and an enemy would hit you. You would kind of survive the hit even though the damage should have killed you, as a way of sort of giving you more adrenaline for that moment. And game developers tend to do this a lot in game development, that you sort of they kind of sneak things into the implementation of games where people don't really get to see them, but they give you the sense that the game is a bit more fair, or it can be a bit more dangerous, or a bit more scary. In this sense, we wanted to make sure people wouldn't get frustrated with the cylinder runs. So there is this code which makes the cylinder not run at the same speed if you were already crushed by it.
Okay, we have a couple questions that are a few questions that are story based, and I don't know what level of spoilers you want to do. I mean, the game's been out for a little while now, but here I'm going to ask them, and then you decide. So Nintendo Nate wants to know, why is the mathematician studying the crystals, or why does the cylinder want him to do that?
It was powerful.
Basically, if you think about the mathematician and you think about the cylinder, and later it is revealed in the game that the minions of the cylinder are actually parts of civilization, are made out of parts of civilizations it has basically absorbed, crushed, that have been destroyed. The reason why the mathematician and all the minions of the cylinder are resemble things that are from our world, like human, and for instance, I'm actually looking at a little children's playground here. It's because one of the last worlds that was crushed while it was going through space was actually our world, the human world. And the crystals are basically the Troala. You can see that they use them as these electric sort of. They have these kind of powers. So the cylinder, as it absorbs everything into this kind of universal oneness, it also it receives knowledge that it can use later in different ways. And you could imagine, for instance, if the cylinder was finished with flattening the world of the Troublum and the Troala, and it decided to move on to another world, and its minions it were to create it based on the technology or the civilization of the Troala. Well, these crystals might be of interest for it in order to produce maybe more powerful minions or something like that.
A terrifying thought.
What a strange place.
Okay, so what did the peanut trunk do, and why was it removed? They're like scouring the ray tracing trailer from ages ago.
The peanut trunk? Which was the peanut trunk?
I think it was the one that had the bulges at the end. Maybe that's what they mean by the peanut trunk.
If there's
Nintendo Nate, tell us what you mean if that's not what you mean.
I think that everything that's in the ray tracing version of the game is actually in the game. I would be very surprised. Well, it's been such a long time that I might have missed it. There might have been another mutation.
The many changes.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Okay, we'll skip that one until we have clarification.
This is one of the cooler bosses that we did for the game. And I didn't mention this, I think we talked about it in previous live streams, but the original inspiration for the Wheeler, the Liberator as the official name, was an enemy that we had in the prototype of the game, which was this big walker which had a tractor beam.
Towering monstrosity seemed almost impossible.
But we changed entirely the design because it had to have these human aspects.
If you're clever enough, and this one was.
But this is definitely one of my favorite boss battles in the game.
I love how the mathematician like creates him out of the pieces of the swings and all that. That was like a beautiful animation. I think we shared that today as a tweet. It just happened to coincide with the stream, but yeah, it's very cool how he comes to life there. Okay, question from the chat. Alistor666UWU, who has never seen this game before and is now going like, what the hell is that? It's amazing. Let's see. Or no, Deji Emberblaze asks, in optimal conditions, how big could a Troublum Elder grow? Like, if they had the perfect conditions, like planet-sized, how big?
No, not that large. You can actually see the square version of the Troublum is pretty massive. But he's very old. I don't think that the Troublums were supposed to be much larger than that, which is pretty large if you consider. I mean, definitely some of the creatures of the game would have quite a hard time being able to fight. I mean, to eat a Troublum at least, if they're that big.
So he's asking, what's your favorite creature from the game? And they're kind of alluding to the fact that there might be a fan illustration asking for a friend, they said.
My favorite creature in the game. That's a hard one. I mean, I don't know. There's so many stories behind the designs for all the different ones. For instance, the cleanser I like very much because it came from the design of a creature that we're doing for prototype for a completely different game. There's actually a cool story behind how the concept for the minions came to be. We were actually working on a different project, and I had this elephant creature mixed with a truck, which was pretty cool. And I decided to put it in the prototype of Eternal Cylinder, and that kind of gave it this really interesting vibe because it was like something semi-human from the human world in this alien planet. So that basically might have been one of the starting points where I decided to start mixing things from the human world into the fiction of the game. I was definitely working around with the story. I had a pretty good idea of some of the features I wanted to talk about. But yeah, the servants of the cylinder are definitely some of my favorite creature designs in the game. There you go. One thing I forgot to mention. Two cool things to mention about this interaction that just happened here. One thing is that I think very few people have noticed is that the servants of the cylinder, when you defeat them, they drop these little like blobs. This is kind of one of those really secret things that we added very late in the game. So basically, Daniel, the lead programmer, told me, like, it's really cool killing the servants of the cylinder, but sometimes it's really hard, especially, for instance, in the desert, you have the exonerator, and those, you don't really have to destroy them in the game, so you can get away without having to kill any one of them in the game. So we added these little blobs that you can see have like a jelly, and inside the jelly there's like a mechanical part. What happens if you eat them is that the game grants you, for your mutation tree, it randomly protects a mutation that you already have without having to get the different ingredients. Because for anyone who's played the game, you can basically go through the different you can go to the shrines, and then you're asked to gather certain ingredients, and once you mix them, you're able to protect. And that process does take a while. But if you want to quickly get a mutation protected, you can actually defeat a servant of the cylinder and sort of absorb this little blob. It's a tiny little detail, sort of secret thing, but we tried to add as many of those type of interactions as we could in the game.
DJ Emberblaze is saying big spoilers, so they're going to keep things vague, but is there a story behind the complex maze-like structure found after a certain cutscene that they won't name? Do you have a creation story about this?
I think I know what the maze-like structure is. There's two maze-like structures, so I'm not sure if it's talking about the one like very, very deep near like the end of the game, which I think I'd rather not spoil because that might be too much. And there's also the maze that happened in the beta that was basically the dark maze, which was the Troublum, like this dark cave where you find one of the elders. I don't think he's referring to that one, but the other one I think I'm going to leave it secret for now.
Okay.
By the way, the creature, the exonerator, the liberator we just killed, you could also hurt it by turning into these bombs and letting him absorb you.
Oh, okay. They want to know how many bombs will kill a witness.
How
like a
many
number.
bombs will kill a witness? The
You
bombs.
have to target it flying, right? That would be
Yeah,
hard.
yeah. There's actually easier ways to kill a witness. There's for instance, there's some mutations that do deal little damage, that aren't very powerful, but that you can actually use them to kill a witness. For instance, you can use the tongued trunk, or the one that does this, does this fall animation with the big legs. I don't remember the name. But you just spray water at the witness. The witness will fall down. If anyone sprayed water at a witness, they basically get electrocuted and they are disabled momentarily. So if you just simply use any mutation like the tongue trunk right next to it, it'll break. See, easy way to get rid of them.
There was a entry in the wiki, which we talked about, but the community was really curious about. And by the way, if you haven't seen the wiki on fandom, it is wonderful. Dear, thank you for kind of maintaining that. It was called the Staff of Light, and basically, like, the mathematician has this staff sometimes. Is that the proper name for it? And do you want to talk more about that? Because I don't think anyone's ever heard of that.
Yeah, that's not the official name, but it works perfectly. I mean, I don't have an official name right now. Basically, what we call it is the mathematician's spear. So, but it's a staff, it's a spear, so you can see, or it's like a javelin also. So what the mathematician has is like these retractable javelins that it can hurl, and on one end they're pointy, and you can it's basically like a piercing weapon. But on the other side, they have these like heads with a crystal, and that's this head is like the bacteriophage head that you would see on the serpent, the virus, and what's the name? The official name of the virus is the unifier. So the unifiers, you can see that they have these heads, and inside they have a witness. So it's kind of a contraption almost that the mathematician uses at several points in the game. I got some meteors.
Farmer Jenkins is joking, but it's also an interesting question. How complex is the math the mathematician solves, and why is he called a mathematician?
Aha. The reason why it was called the Mathematician is quite interesting. It's one of those things that is from the prototype of the game. So, okay, so this is something I discussed with Jonas when we were writing the story. So originally, in the first draft of the story of the game, before I had presented the entire document to Jonas. Jonas is the writer, and he worked on. He's a pretty well-known writer, and he worked on the Talos Principle and other well-known games. So, just letting know his credentials. So when I showed him at the beginning in the original story, the Mathematician was actually the creator of the cylinder. It wasn't the other way around. So I had envisioned the Mathematician as the main antagonist of the game. That was for a reason that later changed of the story. So originally it was more meant to be that the Mathematician was from our world, and he had actually come back to planet Earth and had used the cylinder to destroy humanity. But we felt that was something that it didn't go so well with what we were trying to convey to like the story itself, if the cylinder was kind of a tool and not the main thing, like the main antagonist of the story, because it was taking away like that mysticism and that like really important aspect of it being something like totally unknown, because it still was meant to be that in the original story. But if it was kind of a creation from the Mathematician, the it would have less impact. And the reason the mathematician was called the mathematician is because he had created the cylinder. And basically, the cylinder is like a mathematical, like it's like a geometric figure. So it went very well with that concept of it being him being able to create this like super duper cylindrical object of mass destruction. And after the plot of the game changed, and we decided to go with the story being the other way around. Basically, the cylinder is actually who creates the mathematician and all the other minions. We felt the name still was kind of cool, and decided we would not change it. So I don't really have a in-depth reason for why that was originally the name that we chose for the mathematician, but I think definitely Jonas gave it a purpose, and I'd need to go more in depth with him to remember why we ended up not changing it.
Very cool. I always love when you do this part in the game where you're running down the Troala, because it looks like the grass tube is trying to swallow it, right? Like
yes.
that angle. That's pretty ambitious, right?
Yes. I came here because this is one of the only parts of the game where we have something. Well, not one of the only parts, but this is quite a significant part of the game that's totally. It's not mandatory. You can totally skip by this section, and I think a lot of people actually went through the game and never saw this. This was originally in the regular path of the game, but what we were finding out was that Chapter 5 was too stretched out, and that there was taking too long for the Troublum after exiting the Elder's Cave before they actually found the first crash tube. So we decided that this section of the game, originally the plan was just to get rid of it and just take it away, but I decided that it was better if we would leave it signed sort of as a Easter egg. It's not an Easter egg, but something that would be cool for people to see. So you still get you still get some good stuff if you decide to come here. You can get a Troublum egg, and there's a Troublum home, and there's some stuff worth exploring. But the main thing I wanted to show people, if they decide to come here to this area, is to show, well, what the grass tube does. It's basically eating the dead Troala, which many carcasses of Troala exist in this world because they were killed by the mathematician and his minions.
It looks a little terrified, like it's not quite sure that was a good choice.
Yeah, I can imagine he might be choking on his lunch. It's a little bit big, but when you see the layer of teeth it has, it starts making kind of sense that he could eat actually something so large. And a neat detail we have about this grass tube is you can see that it's kind of it changed color because it's eating the Trovala. So they're normally red when you find them in the game, but it's kind of turning a little bit blue because it's eating one. Yeah, all for those who haven't played the game, I'm going through the last episode, which has kind of the more nastier content. There are some scary stuff here and there, but I would say Chapter 4 definitely has like some of the more weirder, sort of creepy looking creatures.
They're saying that some of the vents are conveniently placed, and they are for a purpose later in the game. Did you intend to have more exploration behind the cylinder? And if so, how did you arrive at the final design?
The vents, the original purpose of the vents was to have them placed so that you would complete Chapter 1. It's a very crucial moment in the story when the Troublum basically don't know what to do in this very alien world or the cylinder, and we basically present the Troublum with the same question that maybe many players would have. It was, okay, so there's a giant cylinder. It's crushing everything, but it's moving forward. So maybe the solution to sort of escaping this terrible giant rolling tube is just to jump over it and get to the other side. So it felt like the most natural question a person might have at the beginnings to say, so if I get to the other side, it's kind of, the game is over, there's no more game because I'd be safe. So the vents was basically the objective, the big objective, the big finale of the beginning of the game. However, once we had them placed in the game, we basically realized that they were kind of fun. And, I'm going to die maybe if I don't find a way to get, past this ravine. Oh, yeah, there. So, we decided to use the vents for more puzzles. You can actually see them used in some caves. You can see them used in some elder caves and some mini caves. You can see them used at the end of this chapter. And one question was, so if the Troublum can already jump behind the cylinder at one point, is it really that bad to let them do it again? So it's one of those sort of late decisions, sort of late designs where we said, okay, we can really allow it if people want to do it. It's already established at the end of chapter 1 that there really isn't any hope. And there isn't really any purpose in trying to save yourself by going behind the cylinder. So letting people go behind was giving us an opportunity for them to explore and maybe get some more minerals. But there is this other thing that I think a lot of people maybe never notice, is that if you actually stay behind the cylinder for I think over 4 minutes, the Liberator comes and hunts you down. That's actually the first time you encounter him, if you don't reach him at this point as a boss.
Careful, the voice in their memories whispered.
Whoa.
The servants of the cylinder were gathering in
coming
numbers
for you.
to hunt
Yeah.
and trap the
No.
Troublum. Now was the time to seek safety and wait for the hunters to desist.
This event that happens here is one of many planned events that we tried to do for the game. We had plans for doing more of them. Eventually, as a game this large, end up having to choose. You have to pick what you want to do. So we always wanted the Mathematician and the Servants of the Cylinder to sort of have some appearances at certain points in the game. So the Mathematician kind of sitting down on the cylinder and kind of spawning these enemies in the game is something that we wanted to do in the game at certain sections. You see, you can just spray them with water, and if I did have a tongue trunk or one of the, maybe I can kill him. I'm not sure. Oh no! He ran off. Ah, I missed.
I love how the Mathematician just chilling, like, yeah, I'm watching.
That's a poison one, so it won't kill him. Okay. So basically, here you get basically attacked by mainly cleansers and witnesses. And they start to encircle you, and they start to try to chase you. So it can be hard depending on how well you prepare you are, because you also have the creatures to worry about. You can lose some valuable mutations, but it makes for some of the sections of the game to be more unique and more fun, where you kind of experience kind of unexpected events. So I think that was a very big part of the philosophy as we move forward in the game. So you'll notice that the genre of the game is survival, but the game is very much designed a little bit like a game where we're constantly putting new content in front of the player in a way that's pre-designed by us. Basically, it's linear in terms of what things you get to see and when, because of the nature, obviously, of having to run away from the cylinder and the way we're presenting content. But for anyone who's heard about the story of how Half-Life, the original Half-Life, was made, is basically they finished the game, and when they finished the game was pretty boring. They didn't think the game was good, so they decided that after X amount of time, as the player was progressing through the game, they had to encounter something new or something. It could be anything. It could be either a new enemy, a new scripted sequence. It could be a new puzzle. But they basically had the mentality that they had to be presenting the players all the time with something new and exciting. And I definitely would say that it's something that we had to do very similar to something that happened to us, because we basically had this big survival game with a lot of rules, with a lot of interactions, with a lot of creatures, with many things going on. But the structure of the game being so free and without maybe a predetermined how to say, pre-designed puzzles and stuff, made it so that the progression was, sometimes you would spend too much time just not really having something new happen or nothing exciting. Oh, die. I don't have food.
No.
I don't know if I'm gonna make it. So we decided to start adding, make sure that always in the game, always at all points, we would have new stuff to present players with. So you would go at least no more than maybe 2 rows or 3 rows of towers before before some new content appeared in the game. So in this case, for instance, if you remember what I was talking about, that you don't know if the runs are too hard or not. In this case, that big giant head over there that the cylinder destroyed, it stopped it. If it wouldn't have been because of that head, which can randomly appear in the game, there's no way I would have made it. So that's one of the things that kind of saved me in this situation. Though I'm kind of surprised how slow it's moving. I might have survival mechanics. I know. No, it was the head. So the cylinder slowed down. The cylinder did slow down there very significantly because of the giant human head, that one that it crushed. And that's an unknown. That's something that we cannot predict if it's going to be there or not in the game. So if it wouldn't have been there, there's no way I would have made that run. No way.
Alastor is asking, how did you come up with a giant living cylinder that murders the whole world? Perhaps they want to know why you chose this shape.
I've talked about this before.
One of the creatures was walking around.
It's interesting that now we're going to go see the cylinder creature also.
All that Trevor needed to do was to steal its core.
The cylinder, the reason was for the obvious reason. Basically, if you have a giant cylinder and you want to do a game about survival and you have it basically crushing everything, it gives you a very, very unique mechanic. Mechanically speaking, it's from one point of view, you're basically doing something very, very, very cool from a visual point of view. It's very you've never seen something like that in a game, like a giant cylinder destroying. So artistically, it has that interesting aspect, but mechanically, it also changes very much how you design a game. And actually, that was one of the reasons this game was so hard to make, because it has such big implications in the game design on all fronts, on how progression is done, how enemy AI is done, how the story had to be structured, what kind of things we could do in terms of oh, it changes everything. So definitely this has been our most ambitious project up to date because of the scope and I would say everything boils down, everything comes back to the cylinder. If it weren't because of the cylinder, I think this would be a very, very different game.
I laughed a lot when I saw your tweet where you're like, everyone's developers, what's the scariest, creature you've ever created? You're like, made cylinder. That's it.
Yeah, the funny thing about that tweet is that a lot of people who like take really long time in programs like 3D Studio Max or I don't know ZBrush or Photoshop, and they have to do like these very elaborate like 3D models and animate them and do the textures and make them look believable. And our bad guy is basically one of the basic primitives that you get in the game in 3D Studio Max. You could literally do a cylinder in 5 seconds. So it was kind of funny, like showing that contrast.
I love this little building structure coming up. It's very different, like this square with the holes and things. Is there, I guess, inspirations behind why some of these like ruins are chosen?
You refer to which runes?
Ruins.
The ruins.
Like behind you, there's this ramp and that cool like square.
Yeah. This is part of. This is actually that ruin there has a purpose. It's the second time it's used in the game. This is more kind of a level design thing. So this is one of the definitely this mission we call mission every time we reach like a special area in the game where you have like a very specific purpose and you cannot exit the area. So this was one of the harder ones that we worked on the game. It was quite a while before we got this one working well because a lot of people were struggling with the objective here is to basically steal the core of the tooth tube. So this bridge that you have here, the purpose of it is one of the alternate ways of solving this puzzle, which is to use it as a kind of ramp to jump into the mouth and sort of steal. But there's many ways to solve this puzzle, this section. So for instance, I can come here, use these bombs, and I have these explosive snail creatures. And if you remember from the beginning of the game, this same kind of structure was where the cleanser is, that you had a bridge that you had to sort of lower.
Mm-hmm.
And it would drop, and it was tied up with a chain. So basically what happens there is that those die, the chain is broken, and the bridge falls. So people who kind of remember the interaction that they saw at the earlier portions of the game, they can say, oh, I remember I lowered a bridge that had that shape. So why is it being placed here? And we even put this kind of deagle there.
I love the image.
It's like, this is also kind of a hint. You can blow yourself up inside the tooth tube, the grash tube. And I'm just going to see if I can get away with that. I don't know how many people actually solved this puzzle this way. I think a lot of people just simply floated inside the mouth and just grabbed the core by themselves. But
I used the vent and I laughed because that Rhonda slock, or however you say it, the balls with the eyes, it loved the vent and it kept floating up and down in the vent for a long time.
Yeah, those that's one of those you never know when they're gonna happen, those interactions that sometimes the enemies decide to do something kind of goofy. But you can, for instance, you can see over there at a distance, there's the trees over there that have the balloon body mutation. So you can definitely use the vents, float inside, and do it. But here, if I time my jump correctly, I can just eat this. You can actually do it. I'm gonna make it. Yay. And you blow yourself up. inside, and that basically disables the crash tube. And now you can freely go inside the mouth and go inside. I need one of the ones with legs. No, there. So that now the teeth don't hurt me. It's basically disabled, and I can get the core kind of easily. But this is just one of the ways you can basically steal the core. We actually do give the hint that you can kill them later in the game, in case at the very end there's kind of this big poisonous pool where you're not. It's not mandatory to have the you don't have to kill them because you might reach that area with this mutation that I'm gonna get right now. But if you do lose it in the process, you will need to get it again from a crash tube. The Master of Song.
As soon as the Troublum
Yes, I'm a bleeding heart. I love the Grush tubes. I like them to just live forever walking around because they're cute, I think.
to some place nearby.
That's a very interesting
It was
definition
now
of
the
cute.
master of Song.
Yeah.
My favorite mount ever.
Oh yeah, it's definitely really cool to stand on them while they walk around. They are. That design was done by Edmundo, the art director. It's really cool. So I think I'm gonna reach the top of the tower, and I think that would be kind of reaching the end of the stream.
Perfect timing.
Perfect
Yeah.
At the
timing.
top of a Troublum tower to forge a bond between Troublum.
There's quite a bit of expository dialogue at the top of this tower in this section of the game, because I would say this was one of the big parts in the game where the Trawala sort of explain more what's going on with them and what they're asking you to do.
At the top of this tower, right here in the
Chat wants to know if
with
the
the
Grush tube comes back or if that's it. Will it revive itself?
No, that one was not.
To
That's
sing.
he's a gunner. He won't revive.
Who calls for us in this time of darkness? Who has learned the ancient
So basically here
How
you,
did,
yeah.
friends remember?
how did the song come about? Like, I was expecting a symphony after like that level. Who wrote the song? How did the music come about?
Much is at stake.
The song, which song?
The song that you just sang for the summoning song.
Ah! Oh, wow.
Into the cosmos.
Where did that come from? That was from the audio designer. I don't really remember where we got it from. I do remember having the meeting that we needed to sort of have a very clear audio cue which showed that the Troublum were singing. But basically, at the very end of the game, you can see that the Troublum singing to the stars is like a very significant part of the story of why all this happened to them. So, yeah, I don't remember where the song came from.
I don't think I ever noticed those images appear in the sky before. I was already running at this point.
No, you can't. You actually have to stay here and listen to the story that they tell you. This is one of the only parts in the game where we actually freeze the player. He cannot move because it's very important that we get across what's going on here. And basically, right after the Trawala finishes speaking, you can see him descending and kind of crushing this giant head. We felt this part was kind of mandatory to have the Troublum frozen. We don't do it other times, and we were kind of scared that some people would kind of get bored being stuck, so we decided to add those images on the sky, like to make it a little bit more interesting the visuals.
The rainbows were just so pretty.
Yeah, that was a neat effect we added to sort of give the players something more to look at while we were basically letting the Trawala speak. And yes, I think that's been quite a interesting showcase of elements for today.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys for watching. We like to do this every other Friday, so follow the channel if you've not already followed the channel. We also like to do raids for anyone who's playing the game right now, but looks like there's no one with a mic or can that we can raid to jump into their chat, so I'll skip that for today. But yeah, join Discord, continue the discussion. We'll continue talking after this. And a huge thanks again to Carlos for all the insights in the game and playing so beautifully.
Thanks to everyone. It's been really fun. Okay.
Have a great weekend, all.
Bye-bye.